Nothing like waiting. It's interesting just to see when you don't do anything special, what's happening inside. Is your body carrying tensions? Does your mind stop at some point? How do you talk to yourself? Softly, gently, slowly, or in a more intense way? Are the voices in the head softer, gentle? Most importantly, why do we talk to ourselves all the time? Because obviously there's no reason for it. If we listen to our thoughts on a regular basis, we'll notice that most of them are low quality information, like commentaries and things that are not really adding anything. So why do we talk all the time? Why we can't just be present? Why there is a feeling that we are trying to avoid? What is it that is here and now that our mind can stand? For example, now we sit and dedicate a few minutes to basically do nothing and rest. We don't need our minds, and yet our minds can't stop. It's like an addiction. It's not useful or practical thoughts. What does this moment have that we are trying to run away from it by distracting ourselves with thoughts? Why is it uncomfortable just to rest? What are we afraid that we're gonna find if we stop talking to ourselves? Why does our attention contract into these little movies we call thoughts? Why can't we just open our attention to everything, just rest? There is this feeling that if we don't re-energize our thinking all the time, our world will fall apart. As if we need to be constantly defending ourselves. And we are afraid that if we relax too much, something bad will happen to us. We keep ourselves in trance by repeating things in our head and imagining things, because we're afraid to find that maybe it's just an illusion. So let your breath be smooth and automatic. You've been breathing all your life, most of the time, without thinking. Trust in your body and let it manage your breath completely. And yet, be conscious of your breath. How it comes and how it goes. Notice how when you pay attention to your breath in this passive way, without the intention of modifying it, your nervous system starts to calm down. If you let your breath alone, your muscles relax. The more you focus on your breath, the more it calms down. So it does your mind and all the currents of activity inside of yourself, your emotions, everything start calming down. Just because you pay attention to this node of life energy we call the breath. That is more than just chemistry. It is emotion, it is mental activity. There are a lot of subtle dimensions to the breath. Just the breath alone, observing it, you could follow it back through your mind to the other side. This doesn't require concentration. You're actually noticing your breath always. The problem is that we put other activities on top of it. So it's like resting. Declining the invitations of your mind to focus on something else, to think of something else. You collapse all the universe into your breath, into the single movement of giving and taking, passing through you. We are just resting our minds, doing less and less. It's not another activity. It's a letting go. Because your awareness of the breath was there underneath many layers of activity in the first place. as you retract your intention to interact and react to the world, to your senses, to your thoughts, to your emotions, as you retract into the most essential presence, aliveness, just notice your body alive. Through your heart and your lungs, you notice you are alive. And if you notice you get distracted, just decline the invitation for thinking. Take some kind of trust to surrender all the activity. Trust in life. Trust that everything is fine and that you're safe and you don't need to think, you don't need to do anything. So decline the invitation, just rest in the aliveness of your breath. It's a very soft touch of attention that you need. It's very, very little energy. Our mind gets crazy trying to meditate, trying to do something, trying to concentrate, but you can't meditate. You can only surrender. And meditation takes place because it is always underneath any state. Ironically, when you stop concentrating your attention in thoughts, when your mind starts resting, your attention has a broader angle. And ironically, you notice more things than when you were thinking. These moments start becoming more and more alive, full of sensations. When you open like this, there may be unconscious tension start appearing and giving you other kind of activities and thoughts and emotions. Just don't get into the game. Keep deepening into this moment by doing nothing. The breath keeps flowing, and the more you defocus from your mind, the more the breath and the world start becoming the same thing. The world is like your breath, and your breath is like the world. Let sounds, sensations, and thoughts pop in and out of your experience without reacting to them. You don't need to react. The deeper you rest, at some point your mind cannot really reach you. You are so deep in consciousness, in presence, that thoughts are just up there or out there. If you don't react to them, they don't touch you. Out of habit and fear of disappearing, you will tend to contract back into thinking. That's okay. So every time you catch yourself, just relax. Defocus and rest beyond the appearing and disappearing of that thoughts. The less you do, the deeper you go, the freer you are. The less you interact with the perception of the world, your emotions and your thoughts, a new balance, new stability, new stillness start appearing. A new sense of peace beyond anything that could come and go. Notice the habit of contraction and distraction. Just relax deeper. The more your brain relaxes, your face relaxes, the less activity, the more you notice that your heart is actually full of peace. There is a great freedom when you realize you don't need to think. Sense of opening and relaxation grows deeper and deeper, bigger and bigger. At some point you realize there is no limit to how deep you could go in that stillness, that silence, that peace. Why not completely opening your heart to this moment? Dive into the silence beyond experience. Just surrender all your intentions and embrace the moment as it is, at peace. Your relaxation deepens and deepens. Your body opens to a fresh, clear freshness. Your tiredness is replaced with life, with presence. sadness in your heart is replaced with light and awareness. And your mind becomes still. Like the flame of a candle when there is no wind. Just perfect stillness. Everything that's happening right now, inside and outside of your body, it's like a movie. Appears, disappears, moves. Changes of shape, color, texture, smell, sound. Changing, 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 changing. The more you rest, the more the changeless presence of your awareness becomes evident. And the world doesn't seem to be more than a dream. Notice the little parts in your body, in your mind, they're still awaiting to be released. And effortlessly, they self-release themselves. Just need to witness without reacting. Whatever it is right. If your mind moves, it's right. If it doesn't, it's right. Everything is right. The more you notice the awareness that doesn't change, the more you notice that listening to a sound or a sensation in your body or a thought is actually the same experience. Experiences, perceptions, emotions, they all come and go. Only your awareness remains still, immutable, peaceful, open. If your body is uncomfortable, it doesn't matter. If your mind reacts to sounds outside, it doesn't matter. Just retract your attention from all these happenings so you have a wider, deeper sense of this moment. We're going to finish this exploration very soon. For the last moment, just explore how deep can you go letting go? How much can you trust that everything is fine? And retract your attention from the world of thoughts, emotions. Just rest. Allow yourself to rest in perfection. Now the challenge is to start letting your body to move freely and even your mind, but not to get completely attached to it. So the deeper space is still there. There's all these big claims of happiness and unconditional joy and things that sound at first a little too big to be real in this world where there is so much tragedy. But looking closer to the experience, to the experiment of what if we are already there? So it's not like with meditation you discover strange state of happiness only safe for saints or yogis or something strange and human. What if it's just the same background that is allowing us to experience this moment? What it is so simple that our minds can grasp it ever. So there is that paradox. You're trying to be happy. You're trying to get this sense of wholeness, of fulfillment. And we are looking for things in the world and conditions in the world to feel that sensation of, I don't know, but I guess for many people it's a sense of space. Like being in a beautiful beach, huge, with all the oceans, that sense of presence, or mountains. Or that sense of unlimited presence. And yet, it's always there. So meditation, every single meditation, every single moment should feel like you're waking up. Like you were daydreaming, you were contracting your mind, your attention into all these important tasks that are open in our mind. I should be taking care of this, taking care of that. But if you retract your attention from them just as an experiment, what happens if you just ignore your mind, ignore everything? Well, first, many people will find a lot of things we don't want to feel. Most of us have been exposed to a certain amount of trauma or fear, some things we don't want to remember or acknowledge. So that makes the point why someone should meditate every day, because it could take an instant of surrendering to let yourself completely go. But going back to statistics, for most people it feels like a cleaning, like a process of retraining your attention to not just follow any thought, not to follow any impulse. Just for a second, what if you don't react so much? What if you... And it just, when you do it regularly, so you have enough time exploring, you get to notice that every time you decide not to follow that thought or that reaction or that subject you think you need to be paying attention, it's like a bubble, so bubble pops. So there's something that it releases a little bit. And every time a thought comes and goes and you haven't immersed your attention into it, you have remained completely open, there's a little bit of a release. There's a little bit of a... And in that way you just collect yourself in here. You just don't run after everything. Suddenly you find yourself more in the middle of the carousel, where everything is just going around, but there's a sense of stability. That's where you notice that all this chaos in your life, all this, imagine running in the carousel around, how confusing and sometimes dizzy you could get, and everything seems to be so real and even dangerous. But the more you retract yourself, you have the guts, you're there. For most people, is suffering that really kicks in, the reason why to really seriously try to let go. But it doesn't have to be that way. So the more you just let go, you just relax. Instead of thinking, oh, I should be solving this problem, you just for a few minutes practice not to think that is true. Just ignore it. Nothing's going to happen. You're not going to die, and that problem, if you're worried, is going to be when you finish to meditate. But the more you retract your attention, the more you get at some point into this flow of experience that I think is very, very relevant, because it's like the gate to something else. But it requires certain kind of disidentification with your thoughts and your emotions and everything. And by disidentification, I mean not contracting your attention on it. Whatever you focus so much, at some point you believe you are that. It's just so just by practicing releasing your attention from things, especially every time you seems reasonable, like sitting for a few minutes and not thinking on your problems, you release a little bit, and you have, your mind becomes, how you say that in English? Obedient in a way, but not obedient in a way that you are separated from it or you have power over it, but more like, to some extent, if you don't want to move your hand, you don't move it. But certain things need to be cleared up for that, so it's normal that people don't find it. Yeah, this thing of meditation sounds so simple, and yet it seems to be so difficult. And people are saying all the time the same. Just be present, just be aware. It's just like, oh my God, I'm tired of hearing the same thing. But there's really nothing else to say. Or you will never stop talking. But ultimately, I think at least there is a part that is good to especially share these thoughts maybe with people around you in the right place, in the right moment. Or just as we're doing here, just to notice that you're not alone. You're not the only one who are thinking that. You could try to let go for real, like beyond what people say, people taking a psychological way. Well, the case that I want to make is that if you just learn to release, which it will be like unlearning to compulsively concentrate, actually. So it's not even something you can do. But anyway, you just learn to relax and let go, relax and you let go. The beginning is kind of superficial, but then at some point I suggest to really become aware of your breath. It's just useful. It's not the only thing, but there's a great advantage to that. Many people try to watch their mind and become neutral to their own thoughts directly, and it seems a nightmare, it seems impossible. But if after relaxing your body, you just let your breath, you don't manage it, you just let it, you unblock it. You kind of start going to a resting state. And from there, that will be similar for many people, like going to sleep. Suddenly you're gonna notice that your mind is just de-energized. Not so many thoughts come, and when they come, they don't come so strong. And suddenly this opportunity of letting go start becoming way easier. And although this approach being stated already by the Buddha more than 2,000 years ago, and still for some reason I don't see many people, I see many people nowadays trying to make a direct approach, which is good compared to times where people thought they need to spend lives and lives before they had a chance of experiencing anything unlimited. But I see many people failing integrating it in their own lives because we have this mentality of hacking everything, of making a weekend and hacking, learning coding in one weekend, learning this language we have this idea that we need to make it very fast, and obviously that's practical to some extent and forces to be more essential, but at the same time it's not enough for this thing. The irony here that I see very much in meditation, it is the longest path is faster. So everybody's trying to get enlightened and to get to this point where you're just free and feel fine all the time and you just know that. Then you just have to become aware of your thoughts and detach yourself from your thoughts and just do that. But many people seem to be kind of stuck in a situation where they just try, they relax a little bit, but there is certain threshold they cannot penetrate with their meditation. And the solution is in ancient texts and ancient techniques, because they were the simpler ones. And then comes someone and complicates it, and comes someone and complicates it. Actually, the teachings of the Buddha are already a few turnings of things that were already going. So actually the whole Buddhism is an answer to Hinduism. In that sense, many people don't understand Buddhism really, in the sense of Buddhism nowadays is understood as mindfulness, as this kind of like flow approach, like just vipassana, just do anything, everything's fine. Yeah, but the Buddha himself practiced single-pointed meditation all his life. So he wasn't trying to say that that's not necessary. On the contrary, he insisted. If you follow the doctrine of Buddhism, you're going to find that practicing the jnanas, as they call this kind of very super focused, very step-by-step kind of meditation, is essential. But that takes time. So most people nowadays, we're not interested in that idea. It's too long. It seems focusing on an object and letting go little by little. It's no. I want to focus on my own mind. Well, I don't know, but I don't know anyone who succeeded with it who didn't do the other training for many years before. So it makes a lot of sense to me that many people nowadays with the apps and all that, they get to have certain kind of relaxation and openness. But again, the mind is very subtle, and our psychology and traumas are, as some people will call ego, is way trickier than that. So even when you make all the guided meditations in the world, it will still crawling back. Or even when you read all the books in the world, it's still crawling back in some way. So the solution, it is, well, Buddha himself proposed this mixed approach with focused meditation on the breath and then keep releasing up to your thoughts, mind, and deeper dimensions, because the breath can help you go deeper and deeper. That's a beautiful, incredible tool. That's why it is there. That's why the Buddha himself supposedly got enlightened doing that. And he does probably definitely one of the most important meditations he passed on. Just focus on your breath on different levels. You're gonna get to notice different levels of your breath, and you're gonna start noticing that your breath and your thoughts are completely connected, and not just that, all your experience in this world is completely connected to your breath. So that needs to be nurtured. That needs to be, they talk about discipline. I don't think it's a very good word, but some ways practical to think of. Yeah, meditate. There's so many people nowadays saying, you don't need to meditate. Like, no meditation. But that doesn't create a revolution, because the identification, the separation still a reality in experience. So the only way out is by nurturing a deeper, sharper awareness of this moment through an object, or, as we do many times in here, through the most open focus kind of approach, which is good. It's more difficult to keep feedback if you're doing good or not. If you have one object, it's relatively easy to notice, oh, for a while I completely got lost. But when you're focusing on everything, many people just kind of get a little too lax, and they lose their quality of their meditation. That's why I insist that if you're gonna practice very open meditation, just make sure that you first practice a very focused meditation, so you have a standard, an entry point, and with this quality of stability of the attention, then you can open up. And it's really that simple. I mean, it's unbreakable. There's no chance that doesn't work. If it doesn't work, it's because we try to rush into it and desperately run through it. But no, just if you cannot release two thoughts that come to interfere with your object, if you cannot let go of this interference, how are you going to let go of your whole mind? How are you even going to observe your own mind, which is, where is your mind? How it is your mind? Is big, is small, it is blue, it is dark, it is what it is. So obviously it's a very subtle object. So it's going to be impossible to observe the mind if you haven't refined your attention to a certain degree. And you do that by how long can you sustain your attention in one object? How pure can that be? That can go very long. It's not just something you just accomplish and that's it. As I mentioned before, the Buddha himself practices all his life. So there's a constant fine-tuning. It makes sense to always practice. And once you have everything ready, it's like something like when you're painting a room, if you're gonna do it right, you spend so much time in preparation. You put in everything right and everything. But if you do everything right, then just painting the wall it's relatively quick. Kind of the same thing. If you single-pointedly fine-tune your attention, then once you get that clean, sharp observation skills, then you put it into a more subtle object and suddenly it just works. It's just every time it pops out, there's a huge, clear sense of release, as if there was, I don't like to refer as energy because I think it's confusing for many people. But there is that very clear sense of opening, of suddenly like a release, like suddenly something's flowing, very profound, everything is lighter and everything is freer. And it just goes on and on and on. And just to mention, because I feel always compelled to make this sort of side tour of meditation in a nutshell. When you observe everything moving, there is this very, very, very important point, which is where you notice that as if you were just watching a TV from very close. The beginning, you're very confused, especially if it's a big screen. But once some point you just really paying attention and opening your angle a little bit, you just start noticing patterns and colors, and at some point you see there's a screen. And you see that, oh no, there wasn't a lion about to hit me and a lot of confusing things just happened randomly. No, you were just having a very narrow point of view, which is what is called the ego. Just narrow point of view. Just open, just wide angle into everything. Just for that, you don't need to judge or make these deep self-repeated truths that only sustained by constant thinking. So you need to let go of that system. And then you just play yourself with this sort of moving in different directions, different senses, your emotions. Everything seems to be moving and very active. And yet, if you get to relax deep enough psychologically, your attention opens enough to see the whole universe there in the middle of nowhere. Then it's like, I like this analogy of, there's a sense of something that doesn't change, that is there, that need to be there in order for that thing to be changing. And that structure, it's impossible to define. It's not an object. It's not something you can perceive. It's not something you can think of. It's not something you can sense in any way. And yet, at some point, it starts becoming more apparent. Everything you sense, everything you think is supported by this background. And the more you stay in there, the more it feels like a mirror against a mirror. Suddenly infinite appears. There is this sense of space and stillness, and there's this sense that the worst thought could cross your mind and you wouldn't react to it. There's some kind of impersonality. And if you're there, you already know. That's where the real mojo starts. Everything in between, we can still believe there is something or someone outside ourselves who can really make it for us, or we are missing something, or we need to work on something. But after that point, it's just abiding in there. And definitely your ghosts from the past and many mental habits will catch you over and over again. But once you taste this sense of silence, stillness, space, really the worst cannot embrace. But I know many of you intuitively know very well what I'm talking about. It's just maybe a background smell in your meditation, like there's something so big now that I'm afraid to let go. So but one of the most important discoveries is that pick the most beautiful experience you had in this life. Just notice the quality of it, that happiness, that lightness, that light, that ethereal, magical ecstasy. well, that's the closest you have gotten to this background, and to make the personal discovery that this background, this apparent non-objective, strange thing we call awareness or stillness or silence, or to notice that that is the joy we're looking in the world, explains why you cannot make it happen. Explain why it's just useless to think that tomorrow anything will change or you will get anything you don't have now. Just start becoming obvious. You're just not going to work. It's a lie. And that brings obviously a great sense of power. Even you fall back into the dream, but there a memory stays in there. Memory as a sense of freedom, and you just want to go back to it. And hopefully you use every experience you have in every moment to get exactly that, by zooming out, by relaxing, by letting go, by freeing yourself. Does this make sense? I don't know, I talk from this is a very subjective and personal experience, and it's always a little strange try to convey into words. I don't know how it really lands on you, but I hope it's meeting today has reinforced in some way your clarity, your practice, and your sense of peace, that you're there already, that you need to try hard, and no matter how many times you lose it, you're gonna wake up on it anyway someday. Thank you so much for coming.